This program is brought to you by the following proud sponsors: the Alltech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, and by California CEO Online Video Business Magazine.
Good morning, Riverside County, and the rest of everyone else out there in the on the internets. Good morning, and today here for 1 Million Cups we have two of my good friends, Jermaine and Fida. They're going to be here talking about the Branding Lab. And if you're a startup, or if you're a business or an organization or a small company, branding is going to be a very important part of what you need to do to become successful. And so here in our startup community, we have a variety of different meetup groups that are sharing information, and the Branding Lab is actually one of our, we're actually really excited that they're here to present today because it's an important part of what we need here in our startup community. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Jermaine and Fida, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the Branding Lab.
Thanks, Ralph.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Jermaine Richards.
I'm Fida Elliott.
And we are the founders of the Branding Lab. The Branding Lab is a networking group located in Riverside, California. Our goal is simple. We bring together startups, entrepreneurs, designers, user experience designers to experiment and learn on new ways to build a successful brand. Those who can benefit from the Branding Lab are business owners, entrepreneurs, user experience enthusiasts, marketing professionals, students, and creatives. Think about this. Your brand is one of the most important part of your companies. Your brand is what defines your company and helps you to stand out from the competition. In this world of constant noise and clutter, you want to build a brand that stands out from the competition and helps you to excel in your business. Topics we've covered. We've had some great speakers come out of the Branding Lab to speak in the past. Some topics we've covered are email marketing, user experience journey, WordPress for small businesses, SEO, social media, and the power of persuasion.
To expand on some of the brands we address, we also address not just products, but also service brands, events and conferences, and personal branding.
That's correct. Upcoming topics that we have for the Branding Lab are innovation and emotional design. This is a powerful presentation, and you guys should not miss this. It's by Jolie Gardner, PhD. Jolie Gardner is from the Human Factors and Research Incorporated. She'll be talking about emotional design. What is emotional design and how it can impact your brand strategy? In addition to that, on March 10th at 7:30, we also have the Brand Spotlight. This is also good for startups and small businesses to come out and do a 15-minute presentation to understand and get solicit feedback from designers on how they can build a better brand strategy for their brand. So I invite all startups and small businesses to come out to this presentation. So connect with us. It's a pretty simple thing to do. We meet 7:30 at the second Tuesday of every month at Riverside IO at 397076 Market Street in Riverside, California. If you would like to present or be a part of the Brand Spotlight, you can email us at info@thelabtolearn.com, or we're also on Meetup /the Branding Lab, and thelabtolearn.com is our URL. Thank you. We can take questions.
All right, so well, I'd like to lead off with a question, and then we'd like to ask the audience. But I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about your background and also the story behind how you guys decided to come together and start the Branding Lab.
That's a good question. Well, my background personally, I've been in the industry for about 12 years. I've worked in numerous industries: healthcare, marketing, finance, banking, and marketing firms. And I've always had a passion for branding. And with that passion, I always wanted to find some place where I can continue to learn and expel my knowledge and gain knowledge from other folks that are interested in branding as well. So I'm a business owner. I have a design firm called Design Lingo, and Fida has her own design firm as well. She'll explain that to you in a minute. But we both became friends, and with the passion for branding, we was like, well, we need to find a place where we can learn more about branding and learn from others. So we was like, well, since we can't find a location for the Branding Lab, let's start our own. So that's how the Branding Lab became into fruition, and ever since then we've pretty much came together and tried to figure out how we can continue to learn from each other and learn from other industry experts.
Yeah, so I have a graphic design business too. It's called Inspired, and it's kind of like what Jermaine was saying. I saw that a lot of my clients didn't really understand branding from a very foundation level. A lot of times people think branding is just a logo as opposed to the full company visual and personality of the whole company. And so the Branding Lab was an opportunity to kind of let people, give them a place where they can learn the vastness of branding.
Okay. To educate them.
Yeah.
Exactly. To expand on branding, we wanted to come up with a brand that would be recognized and kind of fun. So that's came up with the whole lab code thing and make it a laboratory, a learning exercise where people come and experiment on how to build a brand. Because every brand is unique. And you have to understand your customers and what their needs are.
So talk about maybe what to expect if I come to the Branding Lab meetup for the first time. Because I know you guys have a really interesting setup. It's really cool how you guys put it together. But talk about the experience and kind of what it's like at coming to a Branding Lab meetup.
It's very laid back. People welcome you. It's very easygoing. People come to learn. It's not like a serious, dry session. So it's more interactive. We can ask, we have Q&As, and we engage the speakers and try to learn from them to learn about their background and try to understand, what areas they can improve on. We can improve on from a branding standpoint. So it's a very fun environment. We invite everyone to come out and check us out.
And everyone's encouraged to share their ideas and their brand and get opinions about what they're working on.
Okay.
When you're working with a company or meeting a company, what are the steps you take them through in their branding process? Where do you start, and how do you take them through that branding process?
Well, personally, I try to have a simple approach when it comes to branding. First of all, you want to understand who your customers are and understand what markets you're trying to target. Then you want to develop a brand. And the most important thing about branding these days is you want to tap into emotions. Emotion is very important when it comes to branding because that's what drives the customer to want to actually engage your brand. Then you want to come up with a brand promise. What do you want to promise to your customers? In addition to that, there's also brand consistency. Consistency is very important across all platforms, web, print, or social media. And then stay relevant. That's pretty much the steps that I try to stay with it within when I come up with a brand strategy for a client.
How do you work with clients that, have limited budgets and don't understand that, because we see a lot where companies are doing well, but their brand image is really, really weak. I mean, whether it's website or videos or print, they don't have the comprehension that a Xerox brochure is not a brochure, or a website you created in 1990 is your brand, or a video that you did with your smartphone is your brand. How do you educate them in that, depending on your brand, how you need to present yourself to your clients or the public?
Okay, want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. So basically, when you're starting on a brand or rebranding or something, you want to think of it as a long-term project as opposed to taking care of everything at one time. So that gives you kind of a little bit of room, and you can expand your budget as you grow. So but what we try to do is just right from the beginning, you want to make sure that everything you add on to it kind of fits into what you've already done. So rather than trying to do everything and doing it at a low budget, do it in small little steps. So start with make sure the foundation is there, make sure every piece that you collateral or website or whatever it is that you're working on, make sure that they all support each other, and just do it in small increments.
And then one final question is, once you help them kind of start or develop their brand, how do you help them get their brand out there? What do you do to, I mean, it's one thing to have a great product or a great company, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't work. So the old saying, build it and they will come, they'll only come if they know you're there.
Right.
So how do you help them get their brand out?
That's part of it right from the beginning. So when we're talking about branding, obviously we don't exist without people. So it's very important that right from the beginning, the customer is the most important, how you're going to reach them. Every piece that you design or put together, addresses that in some way. So part of it always is who are we reaching, how are we going to reach them, and how does this piece reach them? So.
It's also a strategy you outline based on their budgetary concerns. You try to outline, do we want to go towards a social media campaign, which is advisable, versus a print campaign. So a lot of times clients opt for the social media campaign to get started, to get their word out, because it's more cost effective.
Based on social media, I hear that a lot. But for a lot of companies that are B2B, social media is really not the format. So if you're a B2B company, how would you approach the product? Because for us, that's a lot of our clients are B2B, and obviously I'm a businessman. I don't use my Facebook to do business with business. If I have consumers, I do, but maybe LinkedIn. But tell me how you might approach a B2B business in social marketing.
With B2B, I mean, again, it depends on who the customer is. There are varied ways that we can reach them. Online, for sure, with websites, LinkedIn. There are some social media platforms that are more business-oriented. Twitter, LinkedIn works really effectively. And then a lot of, face-to-face referrals are a big thing that we talk about a lot. Email marketing, things like that.
That's correct. Yeah, I think the key is to tap into your customers' needs and try to understand what your customers are looking for and what's their preferred method of communication. I think once you understand that, that'll be the best approach on how to put up together a brand strategy to market to that customer.
How can a small business maintain a consistent brand? Because one of the biggest problems I see with a lot of small businesses, and especially entrepreneurs, is they put up a website, then they come up with a print piece, and nothing is connected.
Yes.
And so people are seeing multiple versions of a brand. So how do you help them unify that and maintain a discipline? Because that's the biggest problem I see, is the lack of discipline through their organization.
Yeah, I think the key to that is coming up with a brand standard and have the customer understand that these are your template, your guidelines to market on certain platforms, social media and print. And you have certain consistent colors you use on multiple platforms. Branding is something that needs to remain consistent. So coming up with a standard manual will help the client to understand, okay, these are my marketing platforms and this is how I need to portray myself in social media or specific audiences.
Yeah, to take that a step further, the voice is really important too, to make sure that the overall story that you're telling is always the same, it's consistent from one meeting to the other, and that the voice that you use is consistent.
How do you do that if you have a team of people and they're all taking turns, like putting together marketing pieces? So you have a lot of different, they all come at it from a different angle. So
brand standards will be your guideline. It's like a manual that tells this is how I need to correctly market my business. This is my channels I'm going to market to, and this is how my logo or brand need to be presented to the customers.
Yeah, a lot of companies will even have social media policies. So when there's multiple people posting on social media, they'll have like, this is what our voice is supposed to sound like, with like really good examples of photos they use to make sure that it's consistent no matter who's posting on there.
I want to piggyback off of a previous question. Like the B2B, I think a lot of companies, where they purchase is a combination of social media and also direct interaction. So are you tied into various sectors of what their purchasing methods are, and kind of walk us through how you determine the best approach for marketing that customer?
That's a pretty broad question to answer. I think, again, it's based on the client's specific needs and where they're at in their marketing plan or their branding strategy. And you try to find out, again, who their customers are and what they're looking for. They might have budgetary concerns that you really can't address until you understand a full concept in terms of where the brand are and how you can help them to market. So it's more of an individualized type scenario. So it's hard to specifically walk you through that question until you get more information about the client and their needs.
So is that something that you do?
Yes.
Because I mean, certain sectors like healthcare does it differently. But I heard you were kind of focused on SEO and not so much B2B. So
not really. It's in terms of SEO, it's just something where you try to figure out what the client's needs are. And if they're a social media heavy type company and wants to focus on social media, you try to figure if that's the best strategy for them at this point. So again, understanding the customers and the customers' needs, social media might not be the best approach for them sometimes. So it all depends on the industry and what the needs are. You try to understand that and give you a better idea of how to put together a better brand strategy for them.
And you're plugged into those different industries?
Yes.
Somehow?
Right. We mean, when you say industries, you mean like campaigns, or the industries like healthcare or marketing?
Healthcare, like healthcare and other industries that you know you have a direct tie into what they're...
Not really a direct tie, it's more of a research. So you research that industry and try to determine what's the best way to market to that industry. And you want to make it unique. You want to try to find different ways to stand out from the competition, because everyone is trying to be doing the same thing you're doing. So you want to figure out what makes your customer unique and how you can put that to market.
And you would do that?
Yes, that's correct.
So I have a question. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between branding and marketing, because they go hand in hand, but the disciplines are a little bit separate. So talk to us about, you know, what is branding, what is marketing, and what's the difference between the two?
Okay.
I mean, I guess in general, branding is more about how your customer perceives you, and marketing is how you're talking to that customer.
Okay.
So one is more about what you're internally or what your company is putting out there in terms of information, you know, consistency, voice, and then marketing is all the different avenues that you would take that and reach your customer.
So would you say that branding goes beyond, you know, your marketing materials, but could extend to how you answer the phone, and maybe also what your office looks like when people walk into that?
For sure.
It's all about perception,
Right.
Yeah.
and there are lots of ways, lots of things you can be thinking about from a branding standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, maybe people are not only thinking about, hey, what's my business card looking like? What's my website looking like? And the messaging there is awesome, but then you call and you get unfriendly voice on the telephone.
Yeah.
Right.
You
And it
know,
hurts your brand.
and it hurts your brand.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe you could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you know, the thing to understand is that your customer is who defines your brand. You can't define your brand. You can put your marketing materials out to the public, but your customer perceives what your brand is, and that's the important thing to think about when it comes to branding.
Okay.
Quick question on branding, let's say the budget. So any small company has a very limited, or could have a very limited budget, and I'm trying to get a sense for how much of the budget should be directed towards branding versus some of the other things, because there's a potential mismatch between, say, a high quality brand and a you know, thrown together product, or maybe somebody has a high quality product and their brand is not really thought through. So how important is it to try and match those, or should you just get the highest quality brand that you can afford?
I'd say with that, obviously the type of brand you're promoting is a huge part of that. There are plenty of brands that just are very simple when it comes to their actual look, but because that's part of their brand. So it really depends on how you're getting your customers. You know, it's kind of hard to say how your budget should be, but whatever budget you have, you want to make sure that it's being used effectively, and that as time goes on, you can build on stuff you've already done. One of the hardest things is when you put a brand out there and then it's not quite what you wanted or how customers perceive you. Then over time, you actually end up spending more money because you're rebranding.
Yeah.
And so the most important thing that we tell people in the branding lab too is that consistency and doing it as early as possible, getting those brand standards down, getting the big picture set, and then it's easy to build over time on that.
That was a question I had. Some of the more common mistakes that you see small businesses make when it comes to branding.
Yeah.
It sounds like not having a consistent
Just
brand
correct.
policy in
Correct.
place.
And it's hard to tell who they are, you know, what their message is. It's very convoluted.
Yeah, not thinking about it right from the beginning.
Right.
And and it's okay. I mean, websites, Ralph knows about this too. You know, they have to be updated all the time. That's okay. That's just part of so, you know, getting a new website is not rebranding. It's just taking whatever what you already have, your brands, that brand that's already out there, and building on it, making it more current. So, you know, even if you have to start small from the beginning, just start right.
And it's also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Logos. I've seen a lot of people that struggle with logos before they even get into the whole branding thing.
Yeah.
Do you participate and try some of the cheaper options like Fiverr, or do you find a nice, awesome local graphic designist and go big and pay that person? So
I'm going to go with the graphic design part and go big. I'm kidding. Well, you want to understand your brand promise. Understand who your customers are, and by understanding your customer, it'll help you to come up with an identity for your brand. So, you can't just think of, well, these colors are cool and this shape is cool, so I'll use it because it looks good. It's all about understanding your customers and having a brand promise to design for.
How important is it for a brand to evolve? Is it something that people want to have happen, or is it confusing to your customers?
Your brand should evolve over time. It has to stay relevant. That was one of the keys that I covered. You want to be relevant with the times. A lot of companies, based on new trends and stuff, you want to try to stay away from trends, but try to change your brand in a way where it's unique and it stays consistent with the times. A lot of large companies are pretty good at it, and they spend a lot of marketing dollars and branding dollars to remain consistent and big, because they constantly engage with their customers to understand, what's trend, what's hot, what's a hot topic, what kind of style they're looking for, and what kind of emotions they want to evoke from their customers.
So what comes first, marketing or branding?
I would say branding. Yeah.
Can you maybe share with us, you guys are here to talk about the Branding Lab, the meetup, and you've been sharing great information about branding, but maybe share with us a little bit about one of the events. Maybe you could highlight, one of your favorite speakers that came, and maybe talk about, what they covered, and share with us, some more information about, one of the popular events you've had at the Branding Lab meetup.
Yeah. The one that stand out to mind was a event that we had called The Power of Persuasion by Cindy Carpenter. That was a great event that we had, and it was a different approach to branding, but it was more of personal branding. How do you present yourself to your customers? How do you present yourself to your customers and your contacts? How to write a specific email or put it in a way where it persuades someone to some sort of action. So that was a pretty powerful presentation, and she did slides, and it was more interactive. She engaged the audience and helped them to understand, think about how you communicate with people, think about how you communicate with your customers. If you want to engage in action, what words to say and what words not to say.
So writing emails can actually be a part of your brand.
Absolutely.
How you actually put those together.
Everything you say and do engaging your customers is part of your brand strategy.
Okay, I like that.
That's good.
Do you have a favorite
That was
event?
definitely my favorite too,
Okay.
and the way she set it up, it was very interactive with the audience. Like she had us, I think we wrote a sentence, and then she flipped the sentence on how to make that same, how to persuade somebody. So use words like you, your, put your name in there.
Right.
And so it was very interactive. It was a workshop type of.
So how do you engage with a legal entity, because branding is so important, what you say to your customers are so important? Do you guys have engaged with some legal entity so that the email messaging that you send to your customer are legally sound, for example?
You mean from a perspective like the logo is trademarked or registered? When you say
or
legal,
what you say, the message that you say, or engaged in a specific customer doesn't get you in some sort of trouble.
well, it all depends on the client. If it's like a lawyer or a law firm, I'm sure they have different verbiage they would use to communicate with the client. But personally, I haven't dealt with a law firm in that scenario yet. So most of my customers are, from other industries, and emails are not really stringent in terms of messaging or ways to connect or communicate with their customers. I've never had a scenario where an email got a client in trouble. Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to be our last question, but I want to thank you guys for coming out today. I want to invite anybody who is watching or listening to come out and check out the Branding Lab. They didn't mention this, but they have they serve wine. They have great snacks. And it's actually a really fun event. So, you can tell by the lab coats, they even have their own brand for the Branding Lab. Thank you, Jermaine and Fida, for coming out today, and we appreciate it.
Thank you
for
inviting
having us.
This program was brought to you by the following proud sponsors: the Alltech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, and by California CEO Online Video Business Magazine.